Greetings. This is Carl. At the Society of Advice, we did a workshop in August of 2024, and we called the workshop The Ultimate Guide to Attracting Your Ideal Clients. And the workshop was really about how to write a white paper, because the use of white papers has been the most impactful tool I've seen to attracting ideal clients. And we asked for feedback, like questions, blockers, concerns, worries about why haven't you written a white paper? And we got a ton of email. And we've taken all the emails. We got to some of them live in the workshop, but these were responses from members of the Society of Advice when we told them about the subject and asked them, like, why haven't you written a white paper, or why don't you write a white paper? And we got tons of responses. Now, we've taken all the responses and we addressed some of them on the call live. And the ones that we didn't address, we've sort of grouped them together into 15. We found 15 themes. Many of these are like word for word what people said. So I want to just take some time here and go through them one by one real quick with you. Actually, it's not going to be real quick. I'm just going to go through them one by one, and I hope you find this valuable. So the first one was unclear of the purpose and value of writing a white paper. So many advisors were unsure about what a white paper even is and how they could use it to help them grow a business, which would naturally lead to hesitation to writing one. So let me just address this. When I use the phrase white paper, it's a specific artifact of your knowledge, right? Now, I have found that anytime I use specific examples, people often want to argue. I do this too, by the way. People often want to argue about the merits of the example, and we sort of miss the point. So we're often artifact agnostic. Like, we don't spend a bunch of time arguing whether this should be a podcast or a book. We just talk about the process of creating relevant, valuable information for people. And then we let the information inform what our artifact. But in this case, we're talking about a very specific artifact. It's called a white paper. I like the term white paper. I was first really taught this by John Bowen years ago. I like the term white paper because, and it's actually gained, this reasoning has only strengthened over the last couple of years in venture capital, entrepreneurship, and even sort of the investment world. The idea of use of a write-up called a white paper has been really, has become more and more popular. So I like the idea of a white paper just because it has a slight academic feel. And I think it's important to honor that, right? So a white paper is in this context, it's something that really nails the problem, right? Nails the problem, a little bit of a diagnostic, right? Like, nails the problem in the target audience's words. They're often about a niche. So let's just use like architects who started their own firm with 10 or fewer employees. So we want to nail the problem in their words and then come up with a framework for the solution. And one way to think about a white paper is if you were an academic and you were going out to understand a problem and then write about what you found, your research, it could take the form of a white paper. So it's very distinct. It's very distinctly not a marketing brochure, right? Often you won't say anything about, like, this is how we do it here. It's really like, if you thought of, let's say that you had a friend, maybe it's your brother-in-law, who's an architect that owns their own firm with less than 10 employees. So they're in your niche, but you can't take them on as a client because it's your brother-in-law. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody who's tried that knows what I'm talking about. You could hand them this white paper and they could use it as a tool to hire a real financial advisor. It doesn't say, this is the process we use at Richard's financial planning firm. So a white paper could be 1 page, 1 to 3 pages. It could be 10 pages, right? But it's something that nails the problem and then starts to spell out in broad terms the solution. the solution. And it's highly relevant to the target audience. And that's where its power comes from, is its relevance. It's really important to nail the problem in their words. That's the purpose of a white paper, is to, when somebody reads it, the first paragraph they're going to read, and we want them shaking their heads, and we want them saying, "How did you know?" And you would say something kind of sarcastic like, "Crazy, we took the time to actually ask you." And the question we're asking is, what are the unique financial planning challenges that, insert your niche, face, and what is a potential solution? And the potential solution is real financial planning or comprehensive wealth management or family CFO, whatever you, and then you describe that process to them, right? The purpose and value of the white paper is in its relevance to the audience. You're actually giving them relevant information that helps them make good decisions about how to hire a financial planner. And of course, the back page is about the author, about the firm, and they're naturally going to be drawn to you. Okay. And I should also mention this purpose to you is when your target audience reads that relevant, helpful information, they're going to think of you when they need to make a decision about getting financial advice. Okay. Blocker number 2, time constraints. This is legitimate, right? I would think of this time as an investment. And if you're unsure about the return on the investment, then it would be a legitimate concern. And so the question just becomes, are you willing to make that investment? Is it a good time for you? There may be a reason not to, right? Is it a good time for you to make that investment? But I can tell you that writing a white paper, at least in the way that we teach it at the Society of Advice, is for sure something that generates a return and worth the investment. And there will be reasons why it may not be the right time for you. Totally get it. Perception of difficulty. Writing a white paper, this is what we heard. Writing a white paper feels like a monumental task. It sounds so technical, corporate, or academic. Like those are some of the words that you used. Totally reasonable, right? It doesn't have to be. Do you know what I mean? And for that matter, depending on your target market, we may not want to call it a white paper. It's okay. We're just creating an artifact that shows that you understand their problems. People don't care about your solutions. They care about their problems. The white paper is just an artifact to show that you nailed their problems. So, for instance, I've got an advisor friend that works with tattoo artists. I'm not sure I would call it a white paper. I might call it a manifesto. Same concept applies, right? But in terms of the difficulty of writing, it doesn't have to be, right? This does not have to be. The way we teach it makes it not really that hard. You're just going to interview people and you're going to write what you heard. And we teach you everything about exactly how to get that information from people, like what questions to ask. In fact, we even produced a guide that will show you exactly what questions to ask. It's not hard to do. And I understand it sounds hard, but it's not. Fear of low engagement was the next reason, constraint, or blocker. Many of you are concerned that no one will read it, especially because it's long form content and it can often be seen as dry and unengaging. Completely reasonable. But you're not going to write dry and unengaging content because guess what? It's going to be about them. It's going to be using their words. Now, no one will read it if they don't know it exists. So there is a marketing problem, if you will. And one of the things that we teach is part of the research that you're going to do and the interviews you're going to do are going to help you establish a distribution channel for the white paper, right? Like if you interview a CPA that works with architects that own their own firm with fewer than 10 or fewer employees, and you do a decent job at this white paper, which is not hard, but it is a bar. Like you got to do a good job. And you use the language I teach, then that accountant that works with the same niche client as you will want copies because it's helpful and useful and relevant to their clients. Like they'll be seen in a positive light for passing it on. Now, if you do the research right and you release bits, we talk about them as content snacks, like you're taking snacks and building a full meal. You don't want to do that in secret. We're going to do that in public. Those can each be LinkedIn posts, or those could each be podcast episodes, or those could each be YouTube videos, or those could each be email newsletters, depending on which channel you're using. Each bit, each interview, each idea that's going into the white paper is going to be released in public on the way. And you're going to say something like, if you like this, you're going to love the white paper I'm working on. Tell me where to send the copy. So you're building an audience as you write the paper, because fear of low engagement's a real thing. The next blocker was starting challenges. Many of you said, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to write about, and I don't know how to structure it. Well, we solved that problem in the workshop. And those of you who are there, you all know we solved that problem in the workshop with the guides, the downloads that you can use. So this should have made it easy to start. I hope that we solved that problem for all of you. Next blocker, perfectionism and self-doubt. Oh my gosh, my friends, I'm with you. I feel it too. And I'm sorry. The people, I'm pointing out the window, the people out there need you. So we're just going to have to set that to the side. In fact, I'm going to fire you from that job of perfectionism, that job of deciding whether your content is good enough for the people. You're fired. You're the worst person on the planet to be in the job of deciding if your own content is any good, right? Like I'm the worst person to decide on mine. I fired myself a long time ago. So perfectionism and self-doubt, fear of producing I'm worried about producing low quality work or feeling inadequate about the work. And that's why I just keep putting it off. I get it. I totally get it. Could you please just trust me? You're fired from that job. Your job now is just to do the work and put it out in public. That's it. It's not to even think about the outcome. Just do the work and put it out in public. And I feel you. Next one, lack of originality. Many of you worried that the topics that you would cover have already been covered, making your white paper redundant. Totally get it. I don't want you to produce a redundant thing. Just don't even do it. Except that they're all unique because you're the one doing the research, right? You're going to go interview 10 entrepreneurs with a successful exit, whatever the name of your niche is. We've been using architects that own their own firm with less than 10 employees as our example. You're going to go interview. What you're going to hear is unique. Those 10 people are going to tell you things that if you interviewed another 100 architects, they would tell you a very similar thing. But nobody's written it yet. I can't tell you how low the bar is. All you have to do is ask people and remember what they say and then write it down. And it will be original. And it will nail the problem. That's the key. It's got to be relevant. A lot of these are pointing to, right? Perception of difficulty, low engagement, starting challenges, perfectionism and self-doubt, and lack of originality are all pointing to a very similar problem, which is, yes, it's got to be relevant, or else why do it? Nobody reads email anymore. You read the emails that are relevant to you. Nobody will read a white paper. You would read it if it was relevant to you. So the key to lack of originality is relevance. And the key to relevance is just do the interviews that we teach in the workshop. Compliance hurdles. I don't even know how to talk about this. I don't know how to talk about this. Compliance is so often seen as a place to hide, and sometimes it's real. So depending on your situation, you're going to have to just adapt, but please don't use that as a default no. Take your compliance person donuts and ask them how you can work together. What would you have to change? Right? We're not talking about returns or investments ideas. We're talking literally about describing the process. Here's a first meeting. Here's a second meeting. Here's the types of questions a financial planner would ask you. And you can write down like things about goals and values, assets and liabilities. You could literally describe the CFP 7-step financial planning process. I don't think your compliance person is going to have a problem with that. And if they do, take them donuts and have a chat. See if you can work something out. But don't let it be. So many of us hide behind compliance. Don't let it be an automatic no. Lack of marketing integration. Yeah, we heard this a lot. How does this fit with my marketing? So people said that, I have a difficult time seeing how this will fit in with my overall marketing strategy, or how will I distribute it to the target audience? Well, remember, hopefully this is a core piece of niche marketing. And if you're not engaged in niche marketing and you don't know who you serve, I don't know, maybe this wouldn't be very useful. And I don't even really know how to talk about marketing if we don't know who we serve. Who is it for and what does it do? That's what you should be asking about your marketing. Who is it for and what does it do? If it happens to be an occupational niche or a niche with a specific problem, how to invest socially, retirees in South Florida, people who've recently sold a business and moved to Park City, Utah. The shortcut is an occupational niche, but it could just be a group of people, a problem you're interested in solving, and a group of people who have that problem. Right? If we do that, then this can become a core piece of your marketing, because every interview becomes a piece of, I really don't like the word content, but we all understand what it means. Every little interview you do, every paragraph you write, every solution, each one individually can be a small little content snack released to your target audience, right? So it could become a core piece of your marketing effort, right? Here's the next one. Impersonal perception. White papers are viewed as cold, impersonal, and not aligned with the personal relationship-driven nature of the business we do. Yes, that's true if they're not written well, right? If you go out and do the interviews we teach you and write down their problems in their words, they are deeply personal. They should literally be their words. Like, they can't get much more personal. So I hear you. And this focuses back on make sure you do it right and make sure you make it relevant. There was this problem that came up a couple different times on, I don't understand how this will help me generate, we name this problem a focus on immediate revenue. Totally get it. Totally get it. If you've got other ways of building clients, the ideal clients that you like faster, please go do those. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying this is like, I'm not saying this is the only way. I'm just saying it's the most effective way I've seen. So, and yes, it does take a little bit of time. So I get it there. And if you've got something you think will work better, faster, you should do that. And maybe you do them both, right? Do what you need to do now. Think of it as a bridge to this other business, right? Totally get that. Writer's block and procrastination. Many of you wrote that you struggle with writer's block or the task of writing because writing a white paper feels uninspiring and overwhelming. I think we've covered this one. And writer's block is not a real thing, right? What does Seth Godin say? Plumbers don't get plumber's block. Like, they show up and get to work. Just put it in your calendar and get to work. And we do teach you, again, you don't have to come up with a lot of your own stuff. The first half of the paper is about nailing the problem. Where are you going to get that content? From interviews. People are going to tell you. The second half of the paper is about what real financial planning looks like. Where are you going to get that? CFP 7-step process. Your own process. You engage in at your firm. Just look at what you do with clients, break it down and write it down. And when you feel writer's block, maybe go for a walk and come back and get after it. Yeah. And think of this paper. I hope it's come across that it is inspiring. If it's relevant and solving people's problems and it's going to help you generate new business, that's really exciting. Not boring academic white paper. Do you know what I mean? So get it. There was this fear of overcommitting, which is totally reasonable. And if you've got too much on your plate right now, guess what? Don't do this. It's totally fine. Totally fine. Just decide what your priorities are and do that. You know what I mean? It's okay. Like, if I had my permission granting wand, you don't need permission from me. I'm the last person you need permission from, but permission granted to not feel overcommitted. Just set it aside as a really great idea that you'll get to, right? Go back to focusing on your stop doing list, clear up a little bit of time, and then reevaluate. Is this what you want to insert in that time? It's totally fine. Resistant to traditional methods. Some of you mentioned you preferred other forms of communication, such as social media, blogs, and you see white papers outdated or ineffective. Amen. What are you talking about on your podcasts or your blogs or social media? What are you talking about? Yeah. Relevant information to your target audience. Take those bits of relevant information. Those are content snacks. Build yourself a meal. And I'm telling you that a white paper is just a mini form of a book. You could call it that if you wanted to. Hey, I want to share my mini book with you. I want to share my mini booklet with you. I want to share my monograph with you. If you write 2 or 3 white papers, which I did this, write 2 or 3 white papers about one niche. I did that. What I wanted to do, except then I moved on to other projects, was combine those into a book. When you hand somebody a book that you've written or a beautifully designed white paper, physical, you hand it to them, something magic happens, right? So yes to other forms of communication, such as social media or blogs. That's just the delivery mechanism. I'm talking about the actual information you're going to share, the content you're going to share. Great. Compile it, put it into a white paper, make that a thing that you hand out like candy to help the world. Remember, the reason we're doing this is love. We're not even, I mean, if you do it for love, you will grow a huge business. The reason we're doing it is for love. There was a significant number of you that simply said, I've never even considered it before. Never even considered writing a white paper before. Amen. Got you. That's what this workshop was for. So that's a handful, like most of the sort of objections that we got. I want you to know I feel all of them. Like they're all valid. I hear you. And guess what? You're the only person that can decide if this form of marketing would be helpful for you right now. And I'm just suggesting that if you decide that it is, don't let these other things get in the way. Right? There's a great line in the David Whyte poem that we share at the retreats a lot, which is, don't let other voices smother something simple. Right? If this is something you've decided to do, we're here to help. That's what the workshop's for. And I'm here to tell you, you can do it, right? You can do it. And just think of this as your path to writing a book. We're going to do a book, one white paper at a time. We have 3 or 4 of them written. We've got a book, right? And the workshop makes it all really easy, especially with all the resources that we've shared. So I hope that's helpful. Those of you who were at the live call, it was amazing to have you. The feedback was incredible. And you're going to make a real difference in the world. Cheers, my friends.